This is a list of the 5 craziest inside theories that we have so far. Now, the inside arc has officially started as of the release of this video, and so now it's time for the crazy theories that are probably going to happen right here. Starting off with our number 1. The first crazy theory: the worms control the inside fully. Now, there's a lot of hints to the fact that this is the case. The first of which is that the worms have been here for quite a while actually, at bare minimum since Oma was in the inside, because we do know Oma is a clone as well, so he was probably put there, or the worms should be aware that Oma was there in the first place. There's also some subtle hints that Togita actually knew about the worms, and the fact that he also knew Oma was probably a clone as well. So the fact that the worms connections run so deep, and adds on to the fact that we've seen that Jan, the Connector, the last Nico, Gilbert, all of them are currently meeting up. This is the perfect breeding ground. One of the biggest questions that I've kind of asked myself is, well, how is the inside so powerful? The fact that not even the government, a government, keep in mind, has a lot of military power at their disposal. It should be relatively easy for them to take over the inside. But if they have the worms backing them, a company that can clone entire human beings, as well as potentially a lot of funding, currently they are global terrorists, they do have the money to be a terrorist group and to even fully take over an area of a country if they really wanted to. And really, that's the biggest point. I can 100% believe the fact that Jan and, the Connector could take over the inside in a heartbeat if they wanted to. So that's the first theory. Second theory: Ryuki becomes the Omega. Now, this theory is fairly straightforward, right? Ryuki hasn't reached his full potential when it comes to his title as the Omega, and we know this because whenever he fights, he's known as the Dragon King. We do know titles play a big part in Kengan Omega because, well, Oma is known as the Ashura, and we do know that the Ashura is his, nickname, you could say. So I think Ryuki also has to reach the point where he is worthy of the name, and that when we see him with that title card, the Omega, he will become that. But also, another big hint of this is that this should explore Ryuki's character and his upbringing at the very least, right? Because he is going to Mukaku and the worms are there as well, so a lot of character development should happen for Ryuki in theory. So this second theory, I think, is not nearly as crazy as the first one, but it's definitely something that the series it's a point that has to exist in the series at some point. Which brings us to our third theory: Ryuki betrays everyone. Now, this is basically a Sasuke situation, and it has to do with the fact that Koga is actually coming along to the inside, which a lot of people found out. I did do a video on this, right? And I said that there's probably a very good reason why Koga is there that may have nothing to do with his power, and I hint to the fact that it might be there for character reasons. It might just be that Ryuki might need Koga there as emotional support, or it might be where Ryuki fully breaks off from Koga to become the Omega. Let's say, he's like, to show his resolve, to show how serious, the situation is, Ryuki just beats the hell out of Koga, right? Because if he becomes the Omega, he becomes a lot stronger, right? At least in theory. So we could have an entire fight scene with Ryuki just beating the shit out of Koga. So that could happen as well, which brings us to our fourth theory. The fourth one is kind of crazy, and that is the death of Setsuna and Oma. Oh, this is going to be a spicy one. we do know that there's plenty of death flags for Setsuna, right? He said he wouldn't see Ryuki again. He might, but we do know he's after the last Nico. Last Nico, last seen in the inside, right? Major hints that Setsuna is going to be there, even though he's not a part of the squad that's going, you know, with Koga and Oma and Retsudo. He's Setsuna. We know that Setsuna does things more or less solo. He's not the type of grouping together type of guy, right? We know this for a fact, right? Like, if you think really hard, you can't think of Setsuna, you know, chilling with a lot of people, having a good, you can't, it doesn't exist. The guy's a creep. He's too much of a creep for that. So that, I think, is a no-brainer. What is probably surprising to a lot of people is the death of Oma. Now, this one is a lot less set in stone than, of course, Setsuna, right? But I think something bad will happen to Oma. There are a lot of hints to this. In the latest chapter, 199, we do see that, you know, Oma's, you know, telling Kazumi that he's gonna be okay, even though they're going to what is potentially the most dangerous place on the planet, right? Like, that's the inside, right? It's the most dangerous place on the planet. Like, it's hyped up to high heaven as that. So, Oma, he's trying to reassure them. We've had a lot of hints that, you know, Oma isn't the main character anymore, guys. Like, I think we have to get this into our head. I might have to do in a completely separate video outlining that eventually Oma is gonna start having a rough time in the series. I think this is inevitable, right? So that is the theory for the fourth crazy theory. That is the death of Setsuna, the maybe death of Oma, but heavily injured. I expect Oma to be a casualty at the very least. The final theory is gonna be even more crazy, right? Koga gets kidnapped by the worms, and they basically put him in, what is it called? The goo ritual. So now this is a crazy theory, mainly because it involves the connector kind of abandoning Ryuki or some crazy thing like that actually happening. Now, what is interesting about this theory is that this may shift the focus from Koga being the main character to Ryuki for a bit, right? So in my second and third theory, you know, Ryuki kind of becomes the bad guy or somewhat of the bad guy. Whereas here in the fifth one, it's more or less Koga gets kidnapped, he becomes the new connector, you could say, and now he's just absolutely powerful. Cause think of it this way, Koga has the highest, you know, potential out of everyone in the story. He does. He's fairly weak right now, but that's like in comparison to like the top tiers, right? So it's, if Koga could get training from the worm or get the goo ritual going for him, the man would be a monster. He would be a complete force to be reckoned with. However, I do see a lot of issues with this, and that is the fact that it's very risky. It is a ballsy move to basically temporarily take out Koga as a part of the story and focus a lot more on Ryuki, right? And I don't know if like the series is willing to go in that direction, in my opinion, right? It's a cool theory, but I just don't see it. So those are the top 5 craziest theories of the inside. So yeah, like, sub, all that fun stuff. And hopefully the inside arc isn't gonna be a massive disappointment. I doubt it's gonna be. There's too much writing on this arc in my opinion. So yeah, that's it. Take it easy.